Sinner takes desperate measures after his doping sanction. Jannik Sinner has been suspended for 3 months after testing positive in a doping control. The substance detected was clostebol, and according to his defense, it was due to accidental contamination. To avoid a longer and more complicated legal process, the Italian reached an agreement with the World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA, and his sanction was reduced to 3 months, allowing him to return just in time for the Rome Masters 1000. This raises a big question: was it really a case of accidental contamination, or was it something more? Some believe the tennis player's version, while others think he has been treated too leniently. Despite the scandal, the Italian Tennis Federation has rallied behind Sinner. The president of the FIP, Angelo Bonaghi, has announced that they will build a special suite for the player at the Rome Masters 1000, with the aim of protecting him from any external contamination and isolating him from criticism. This decision has sparked divided opinions. For some, it is a sign of support for a player who has been a victim of an involuntary mistake. For others, it is an attempt to cover up a situation that casts doubt on the integrity of the sport. While the Italian Federation has decided to protect Sinner, the reaction within the ATP circuit has been very different. Some players have launched harsh criticisms against the Italian and the anti-doping system. Nick Kyrgios, ever controversial, did not hesitate to make a sarcastic remark after the Frenchman Alexander Muller revealed that the ATP had conducted a midnight doping test on him after his match. Kyrgios seized the opportunity to take a jab at Sinner. If they find steroids, just say it's your team's fault and that you didn't know anything about it. But it wasn't just Kyrgios who spoke out. Novak Djokovic also shared his opinion on the case and pointed out that there is a perception of favoritism towards Sinner in the circuit. According to the Serbian, many players feel that the way the Italian's case was handled was unfair and that it is damaging the image of tennis. I've seen the news. The Swiatek and Sinner cases have generated a lot of attention, and it's not a good image for our sport, that's for sure. There's a consensus or a majority of players who express themselves in the locker room, who aren't happy with how this process has been handled. Despite everything, Jannik Sinner will return to the courts in May, just in time for the Rome Masters 1000 and later Roland Garros. However, he will do so amid a storm of criticism and the pressure of proving that he is still the best in the world without the shadow of doping tainting his career. The big question is, how will all this affect his performance? Will he be able to overcome the pressure and prove that his success wasn't due to any illegal advantage? What players have made clear is that the problem isn't with Jannik Sinner himself, but with the way his sanction was handled. Rublev expressed it directly. It's not a problem with Jannik's specific case, but with the system responsible for detecting and managing positives. It's impossible to make even the smallest mistake or oversight. We've seen people sanctioned for missing a test, not even for testing positive, and they were given 2 years of inactivity without any trial. Yet with Sinner, everything was done quickly, and he was allowed to compete while everything was being resolved. Alex de Minaur also expressed his disbelief, comparing this case with previous sanctions. It's hard to give an opinion because this is something that had never been seen before. In the past, all positive cases were resolved with 1 or 2 years of suspension. I can only say that I trust that if another player finds themselves in a similar situation in the future, everything will be handled the same way. The big doubt left by these statements is clear: has everyone who faced similar cases been treated equally? David Goffin was even more blunt, making it clear that for many within the circuit, the sanction against Sinner is incomprehensible. No one in the circuit understands what's going on. It's incomprehensible, the deal with WADA that ended the case. Authorities used to be very strict. As soon as you tested positive in a control, you had to stop playing, but now we see there's room for negotiations. I don't know, it's all very strange. Meanwhile, Juan Martín del Potro also expressed his doubts about the timing of the case. I find the situation strange. It raises a lot of doubts that he tested positive at Indian Wells and it was revealed just before the US Open. The main criticism here is that it seems the case was handled discreetly until the sanction was already agreed upon, avoiding a more severe suspension that would have prevented him from playing the most important tournaments. If someone didn't hold back when talking about the Sinner case, it was the prestigious coach Patrick Mouratoglou. In statements collected by tennis majors, Mouratoglou called the situation a scandal and pointed directly to the system. The issue to debate isn't whether he's guilty or not, but how everything was handled by the anti-doping system. There's a general feeling that there's a double standard. The coach made it clear that, in his opinion, Sinner wasn't trying to dope and that his positive test seems to have been an accidental contamination. However, what truly concerns him is the cover-up and the way the situation was handled by the tennis authorities. For me, he's a victim, But it can't be that his case was covered up by the authorities, that we didn't know he had been provisionally suspended, and now they're taking him out of competition. It's as if they wanted to give the impression that he was punished, but just enough so he wouldn't miss any Grand Slam. This is a parody of justice. I understand why other players are upset. Mouratoglou leaves no room for doubt. The credibility of the anti-doping system in tennis is in question, and the treatment of Sinner has been, at the very least, highly questionable. With so many voices within the circuit expressing their outrage, it's clear that this issue won't be forgotten easily. The big question is whether the ATP or WADA will take measures to ensure that future cases are handled more transparently and fairly. Furthermore, this leaves an important question up in the air. What will happen if another player faces a similar case in the future? Will they be treated with the same leniency as Sinner, or will harsher sanctions return? Dr. Mouratoglou, a renowned expert in doping cases, didn't hesitate to question the handling of the case by WADA. In a series of posts on the social media platform X, formerly Twitter, he criticized the lack of transparency and the inconsistency in the decisions made. Some of his most impactful statements include: the WADA lawyer, who knows nothing about clostebol, an anabolic steroid, says this case is a million miles away from doping. What is he basing this on to deny doping? We'll never know because WADA refuses to communicate the scientific elements that led to their decision. Sinner's tests, even at low concentrations, are not proof of no doping, especially with a topical absorption method, cream. Were hair tests done on Sinner and his masseuse? It's not certain. In short, WADA's condemnation is questionable. The specialist highlights that not only is the final verdict suspicious, but also key details about the investigation have been hidden. To understand better why this case raises so many suspicions, Dr. Mouratoglou reminded everyone of the case of Stefano Battaglino, an Italian footballer who tested positive for the same substance, clostebol, in 2022. The details of the case are eerily similar. It was argued that the substance entered his body through a cream called trophadurmin. It was claimed that the contamination occurred through a massage by his physiotherapist. However, Battaglino was sanctioned with 4 years of suspension. Why did Sinner only receive 3 months while Battaglino was handed 4 years? The difference in punishment is enormous, reinforcing the perception that the anti-doping system in tennis is not applying the rules consistently. This timing of the sanction has raised even more doubts and concerns among many tennis observers. WADA's decision to announce the suspension just before the Rome Masters 1000, a highly significant tournament in the lead-up to Roland Garros, raises the question of whether it was a measure designed to cause the least possible impact on Jannik Sinner's calendar. This kind of timing is not trivial, given that the tournaments leading up to the Grand Slams are crucial for players' physical and mental preparation, especially in the battle for improving their ranking and earning valuable points for the rest of the season. Mouratoglou's statement reflects a perception that is not unfamiliar to many, that WADA, by acting so strategically, may have tried to find a balance between complying with anti-doping regulations and preventing the sanction from having too severe repercussions on Sinner's performance in his important season tournaments. This isn't the first time that the timing of sanctions on players has been questioned, as public perception of these decisions can influence how the case is viewed, affecting both the athlete's reputation and the credibility of the institutions tasked with ensuring the integrity of the sport.